What? What? All right. Okay. Welcome everybody to the Pit Crew podcast on the Drive Smart YouTube channel. We're also streaming live on Twitch. I'm here with DLBTV. He's
We
having
good?
some technical issues. Oh, we're good.
Here we
We're
go.
good.
What's going on,
All
everybody?
right.
And welcome to podcast episode number 26 of the Pit Crew podcast. Today, we got CJ McLaughlin coming on here in one moment. I'm hyped up for it. I'm excited. I'm ready to get this baby on the way. Cameron, how you feeling, buddy?
I'm a little tired. I just got home from work. I've had a very stressful week, so to speak, but this is what I look forward to every week. Let's get it on. Let's bring in our special guest.
Bring him in. Here we go.
Dude, you are caffeinated up. I gotta match that energy. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I gotta pound of Celsius to catch up to you, but I love it.
Absolutely.
I
So,
need one of those microphones too. That
welcome, CJ. So I want to ask a few questions. We're going to start off, start of your career, and how did you get into racing, and how did you get up to the NASCAR Xfinity Series? What got you into motorsports, and what led you down the NASCAR path?
So my dad, when I was younger, my dad was racing AMA superbikes. Raced up a Loudon a bunch, like road courses. Mid Ohio was one of his favorite tracks, in Road Atlanta. He loved the blind corners at Road Atlanta because you like come up and down hills and get a bunch of blind corners. So when I was getting older, Travis Pastrana was huge, and I was like, Dad, I want to race dirt bikes and motorcycles, and he was like, Nope, I broke every bone in my body. You're not doing that. And so he started racing at a local short track, Hudson Speedway up in New Hampshire, and they opened up a kids class there. So he stuck me in a 4-cylinder Chevy Cavalier. And dude, we would just spend our weekends at the races, like racing 4-cylinder ship boxes, and that was a lot of fun. So very fortunate to have that. Then there was a time I was like 17 years old, and I'm like, okay, like what's the next step here? Like, I have no money. How do I what was big in New England is the ACT tour or the modifieds, and the modifieds were just so much money. Like I still can't fathom how much money people spend on that stuff. So like racing kind of went by the wayside. And then when I went to college, I like had the itch, man. Like racing's a weird addiction where like you get an itch and you're like, oh, I gotta go racing again. So I had some extra student loan money out, which I probably should have used to pay rent, but I went and bought a little classic light, which is basically a legend car with no fenders on it. And we raced that for a couple of years. And then the peak stock, I'm going on here, but the peak stock car dream challenge came out in like 2016. And I was trying to figure out like what that was about. I entered into it, didn't win, didn't even become a finalist, but
Was you a part of it?
it made I applied for it, like, but I wasn't like a part of like the final
Gotcha.
5 that but like Patrick Starapoli, like funny enough, like Patrick Starapoli, I reached out to him a bunch, and then I would like reach out to and then I started reaching out to ARCA teams and being like, hey, like, I see you guys have like rides on Racing Junk, like, what's this about? Like, how do people come up with this money? And they're like, oh, like people either have like family businesses or they have sponsors. I'm like, well, how do I'm like pissed about this because I called up one team and this guy like really like talked to me for an hour. He like I completely wasted his time, but he like gave me the full rundown. He was like, oh yeah, you go to sponsors with a marketing proposal. And I was like, well, what's a marketing proposal? Like I went to school for engineering. Like I was out of left field. So like this guy, I wish I remember the guy's name. He helped me a bunch, and then I got hooked up with Eric McClure, and Eric taught me a bunch of how he kept and facilitated Hefty and Reynolds Wrap. And so I just went to town, like, I'm from Boston, so like every Boston-based company I would hit up, right? Like, hey, I'm from Boston, you're from Boston, can we set up a meeting? And I got very fortunate meeting SciAps, and they brought me into the ARCA series, and then on to the Xfinity series from there. So sorry that was a little long-winded, but that was kind of the path, you know?
So you're from up north. Obviously, it's probably far more difficult being up north in the New Jersey area, Boston area, versus everyone else is down here in North Carolina. We're all down here in our own little circle, operating all together. Is it hard? Is it troubling being from up north and trying to still connect with that circle?
The issues come to like, let's say I all of a sudden had a sponsor call me back because they never call me back. Say I had a sponsor call me back and I was like, oh hey, we want to do Martinsville this weekend or Miami this weekend, right? Like I don't think I'd have time to go sit in a car and get my seat fitted, you know, where like the people who live in Charlotte can just pop over to the shop. So things like that, just trying to spend time in the shop and get acquainted with the crew guys, you know, like we're the Pit Crew podcast here. So like, I love hanging out with my mechanics and shooting the shit. I don't know if you see that at the racetrack, but like, I love joking around with them and busting their balls, and you know, they bust their asses on the cars. So enjoy hanging out.
Absolutely. That is awesome. So this year you signed on with DGM Racing, ran a couple races, attempted Daytona. That unfortunately didn't pan out due to rain ruining qualifying, but you showed up at Atlanta, got 25th. How did the DGM deal come together for this year? Drive car number 92.
Nathan Blasdell, who does a lot with snowbelt management. He runs snowbelt management. I was talking to him. I was like, hey man, like I was throwing Hail Marys for Daytona. I was like, dude, who's gonna open ride? And he was like, I just heard about a motor being available. And then I had talked to Mario like a week before. And I was like, hey Mario, like I think we got a motor. You know, like let's do this thing. So and Mario, Megan, Michelle, and everyone has been great to work with. So and like going down to the shop, like they're all racers. Like I really feel like I found a home. Hopefully we can raise more sponsorship dollars to like continue on racing with them and hopefully do a full season next year. Like I'm trying my hardest to get sponsorship and continue on this path, but unfortunately it just takes sponsorship to keep going on the racetrack, you know?
Absolutely. So when we were in Daytona, you got a little viral commercial there for CW with Amelia Hartford. That was crazy. The views on that went up to like, what, 4 million? And ever since then, talking to Jesse or talking to Mario or anyone at the track, you know, we talk about, you know, your sponsor for that weekend probably got more coverage just from that than any TV time from actually running that race. Tell me a little bit about how you got to film that commercial with them, and I was a part of it too, so it was a fun time at Daytona and definitely a very viral moment for all of us.
It was very serendipitous too, because like Ryan Ellis was like, I can't do it right now, and I was like, all right, I'll do it. You know, like shame on me too, because I've like been kicking myself because like I met Amelia and I was like busting her chops. Like, I didn't know who she was. I didn't know she had a huge following. I was just like, hey, what's going on? You know, like giving her a hard time about race cars. Like, what you know? And then like she was like, oh, follow me. I was like, okay. And then she got like millions of followers. And I was like, and then I looked at her profile and she like knows what she's doing. And I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
you know, more than me. She's got more going on than I do, you know?
Oh yeah, she just won like a Formula E like celebrity events. I mean, she's a half decent race car driver there. I'd love to see what she could do in a stock car. But I'm gonna toss you over to Cameron and see what questions he has for Mr. CJ.
Yeah. Out of all the tracks you've raced, both this season and seasons prior, which track was your most favorite or was the most fun to race at, and what track did you like despise going to, like the one weekend you absolutely dreaded?
Okay, so my favorite track is Bristol. I always equate it to Hudson Speedway in New Hampshire, like the track I grew up on. It's a big bowl. It's a lot of fun. It is like you have to have a fucking tough mentality going into that race, right? Like you are like not giving an inch. You're being smart. It's high speed checkers. It's not chess. It's fucking checkers. Daytona's chess, Bristol Checkers, Checkers and Wreckers. So love. I think everyone's like, "Oh, CJ, you get 10th place at Texas," but like I hang my hat on a 22nd place run at Bristol. I think it was the following weekend. Raced my heart out, right? Like, every lap, like fucking everything I had. The one race like I dreaded going to, and it just fucked me up, was Phoenix. Last spring, I didn't qualify in. I just don't have many laps there, and like got like 20 laps of practice, and then like stepped on my dick in qualifying. So definitely need to practice Phoenix a little bit more and get a better feel for Phoenix. It's a very technical track,
I know this season's schedule is a little bit different compared to last season. NASCAR is heading to Mexico City. Think we're what other tracks are we doing this year that's different? I think
Well, not the Milwaukee Mile, Gateway.
oh yeah, Worldwide Technology Raceway. How excited are you not only to go down to Mexico, but also to race at tracks like Worldwide Technology and all those other tracks that we don't really see that often?
Yeah, so right now my schedule doesn't allow for Mexico or the Milwaukee Mile. I mean, sorry, Gateway. But like I'm really excited to see the sport go to Mexico. I think that like you go to South California, Phoenix, there's a huge car culture everywhere in the Southwest, and I think that Mexico is just untapped. Like, when you go to race and you see, I think it's Daniel's Amigos, like they come out in droves, and that's great for the sport, and that's great for, yeah, like, so you guys might not know this, but I'm half Spanish. Like, my mom's born in Peru. So, like,
Really?
yeah, so I think, like, seeing Spanish culture, I'm like, I'm about it,
Can we hear something?
De donde eres is like my go-to when someone's Spanish. I'm like, oh, like, dude, it's like the Family Guy episode where Brian's on the truck, and he's like, oh, it's actually me llamo, not me llamas. Like, and he's like, oh, you speak English? And he's like, no, just that sentence and this sentence explaining that. So, like, my funny story is, like, every time in an Uber and I see, like, the driver has a Peruvian flag, I'm like, yo soy peruano. De donde eres? Like, where are you from in Peru? And they're like, oh, like a fellow Peruvian, And I'm like, oh, dude, that's all I got. And they're like, fuck you. They get so excited and I let them down so hard. So,
right.
Yeah, I need to work on my Spanish.
If it helps at all, I only know hola, como está. That's about it.
Good. Me too.
Next question before I pass it back to DLB. Do you think that we should see more of the NASCAR Mexico Series broadcasted, like on FS1, Fox, CW, all that stuff? And do you think we should see the Mexico Series come over to the US? Because I saw that when they raced at the Coliseum last year, I thought it was probably one of the best short track racing I've ever seen. So I just wanted to know what your take on that would be.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to show the lower series, we have to show everything. And I think we should show more Cars Tour races. I mean, like back in the day, Speed had like everything on there, right? Like,
yep.
And that's how you were gonna get discovered, right? So like, I think like they should have like the East races more like just rebroadcasted and stuff. Like there should like for a sponsor to go join me for an ARCA race, the exposure is very minimal, It's very minimal. So, like, if they had more TV, like, replays, like, that's a selling point.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And also, on a side note, I miss the Speed channel. I miss it so much.
Yeah, it seemed like Fox Sports is, like, trying to bring that back, like, them advertising for Indy so hard. I know that the Top Fuel Dragsters or the Funny Car guy was pretty upset with that, but like, like they're trying to market. They're trying to market.
Yeah. But I also understand why he's upset. Fox is advertising IndyCar as the fastest motorsport in the world. Meanwhile, Funny Cars and Top Fuel Dragsters, they go like 300 miles an hour on a quarter-mile drag strip.
Right. Right. Like,
So
it's funny. I never understood, like, I think being a car person or like a motorsports person, I was always like, oh yeah, like drag racing is cool. And I just be like, oh yeah, like kind of whatever about it. And then I went to the four wides in Charlotte one year, and I was like, oh, I get it now. Like
yeah.
that is insane. Like and that made me realize too, like when I'm talking to someone about NASCAR that's never been to a race before, I'm like, you gotta just come. You gotta experience the noise and the smells firsthand. Like that's what it's all about.
Oh, absolutely. I got a story for you after we're done broadcasting. But on that note, I'm going to pass it back to DLB. DLB, take it away.
We talked about, going to Mexico and going more international. Well, I heard Mario say this weekend that we're close to a 2-year deal with Montreal and headed up to Canada next year. And I've seen the reports started coming out with that over the week. And how do you feel about NASCAR going more international? Because, like, there's been rumors, that they could sell off a portion and make the sport more international. Do you prefer it to be more of just a U.S. sport like it's always been, or start hitting up these Formula 1 tracks? Because, I mean, this is going to be the third Formula 1 track on the schedule, assuming this all comes together.
Yeah, like I personally listen, if I ran NASCAR for a day, I think that we could do like another street course. Like I think Chicago has been a great hit. Like if they went to Chicago, like if they did like something on a pier in New York, that would be wild. Something at a pier like St. Petersburg or Long Beach would be cool. I think Boston would be like amazing.
They need
'cause
that
I'm from
market.
Boston.
We don't have that market.
Yeah, like we have New Hampshire, like kind of, it's like Boston would be awesome. That would be great. Um, so like, yeah, I'm not opposed to us going to Montreal. I think that's a great like when we go up to New Hampshire, the amount of Canadian flags I see up there is unreal.
Mm-hmm.
The posse of Quebecois Montreal Canadians that follow around Mario is unreal.
Seen that? That's awesome. So obviously working with DGM, you got 2 races down this season. I know you got plenty in the works. When are we gonna see you back in any type of stock car, whether if that's a late model, ARCA, Xfinity, or truck, or even Cup?
My next one for sure is April 12th at Bristol.
Bristol.
So got that.
Ooh, got anything else to say about that one?
I'm just pumped up. I think I think DGM works really hard on their cars, and I think I have a clear mindset going to this race and gotta perform well for Main Street.
Oh yeah, and Bristol is such a tough track. How do you prepare being a part-time driver to know that this one is going to be grueling, it's going to be tough on the body, you're going to, likely, you're going to be up on the wheel for the entire 250 laps. How do you prep for that?
I have an iron neck, so I was actually working on that today, like strapping my head to a post and doing my neck workout and making sure that my neck can dig in the corners,
Yeah, that's probably going to be like the biggest thing for that one. So you've been running Xfinity for years now in ARCA. What's your do you got a craziest moment that you have had in racing, whether if it's a crash or just something funny that happened, or just what's your favorite crazy moment?
I get 2 from Talladega. I was in a Harman car one year, and it wasn't my seat insert, and I didn't fit in the seat well. And that was my biggest mistake. And so I think I had no brakes going to 3. And there's video replays of it. I just come barreling through the field. I'm dodging cars. I almost made it through. I watched it on SMP 30 times. I dodged 3 cars on the low side, came up the apron, came back on the track, and then Noah Gragson came down and met me. Because I had I saw the hole and I was boop, going for it. And then Noah Gragson came down, I nailed him, and I slid forward in the seat, and that killed. My boys were hurting, And then the car got turned, I was hitting the inside wall, and I was get the wind knocked out of me, and I was heading towards the inside wall, going pretty fast. I'm just trying to hit the brakes, got nothing. I'm not slowing down, hit the wall again. That second one hurt, and I was just God, this sucks. I've never been usually I go in a crash and I'm boom, 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 shake it off. Like, oh, it sucks, you know. But that one hurt pretty bad. And then 2023 with Emily Gase, we were running like top 10 coming to the tri-oval, and either Garrett Smithley or somebody, I think Brett Moffitt, tagged me in the right rear court. Like they were spinning out, they tagged me in the right rear. I went head on into like the tri-oval wall, and that was tough because like I'm on the brakes as hard as I can, and then it's like a roller coaster, right? Like there's nothing you can do to slow it down, and like I see the wall coming, I had to like let off the brake, and, like I just like remember like looking at the wall and then like looking down on my knees because like the impact, you know. But those are my two Talladega stories.
Wow, so they both came at Talladega. Do you like restrictor plate racing? Because I know a lot of the drivers, they hate it. They don't even like it on the schedule. They don't like it being in the playoffs. And then it seems like the smaller teams, like for instance, DGM, like I know Ryan Ellis, he hates restrictor plate racing. Doesn't like it. But realistically, that's his best shot to win. I feel like going to the track, I love going to restrictor plate tracks because I like the unknown. I like the fact that a smaller budgeted team legitimately has a shot to run up front, lead laps, and potentially win the race if the right thing happens on the final lap. So when you go into Daytona and Talladega, do you love it or do you hate it or do you just fear the worst?
I love it, man. Like, you know, like I think I don't know if it's a bit of mentality. Like I'm a fan first sometimes, so like I want entertainment for the fans. You know, I want them to be like, holy shit, I can't wait to come back again. You know what I mean? Like I don't want single file. Like yeah, like when you appreciate racing, right? Like at a short track, you appreciate when two cars are side by side for 20 laps and like they're battling out. You know, and like you can see both drivers are using 110% of their skill, and they're trying to, you know, they may be leaning on each other a little bit here and there, but you know, restrictor plate racing is what made the sport famous. So I've never had a bad feeling towards it.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the same way I feel about it is, you know, the realistic possibility, but you want to get out of there and survive it and hopefully come home
Like
with
I could go crash at Bristol, you know? It's like it's all the same. You can crash anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I see the pain on the crew member's face when we got 2 destroyed race cars in the garage. But me just being the film guy, it's so easier for me just to be like, is what it is. We'll get them next week. Meanwhile, they gotta go work on the cars. But it's
after the race in Atlanta, yeah.
Was that
After the race in Atlanta, Jackson was on my team. Was like,
oh yeah.
He was a little bummed out, and I was like, "What's the matter, man? Like, we had a good run." And he was like, "Yeah, we got 2 other tore up race cars." And I'm like, "Yeah, but we had a good run."
Yeah, Atlanta was the thing that bummed us out is we had all our cars there at the white flag, and then NASCAR decides, hey, let's let them race on back. We get this big crash on the back straightaway. I think Ellis would have gotten 11th, avoiding the crash. Instead, he checks up and, you know, loses all these positions to survive. Josh Bilicki, you know, dies and hits the inside wall. His car is demolished. And then you came through, gained a lot of positions, but that was a wild day. And coming off Daytona as well, the crew members are like, ugh, we're about done with this, like, restrictor plate racing stuff. But I love it every time we do it. But, so you started in ARCA, worked your way up at Xfinity. What is your proudest moment in racing? Because, you know, there's a lot of ups and downs. We talked about the crashes. What are some of the high points?
Yeah, like I said before, like the 10th at Texas was cool, but like that 22nd run at Bristol, we were fighting for like to stay on the lead lap in the first stage. You know, like that battle to stay in front of the leader and like one, you know, like only 1 lap down just to get our lap back was cool. Like I remember the whole race. All 300 laps of it. So that's definitely like my proudest moment. I think, you know, too, like I'm very fortunate just that my first Xfinity race, I was out of the seat, but I'm still like, yeah, I made it to Xfinity. Like I could, like the chances of me making it this far in racing is like astronomical. Like what my socioeconomic background is, you know, like my dad's, there's no knock on my dad, but he's a truck driver, and you know, I don't, you know, I have $100,000 in student loan debt. Like the fact that I'm out here racing is wild, you know?
What does that mean to you and your family to make it to the second biggest stock car division in the world?
Yeah, it's like, it's still like unreal a little bit, you know? Like my dad loves it's kind of funny. Like you meet these parents, right? Like you look at like Brad Keselowski's dad, right? He just loves it, right? Like sometimes I wonder like if my dad loves it more than I do, you know, because he's up in the pit box. It's a funny story. It came in for a pit stop last year, and Main Street had one of their big investors on the pit box, like big investors, like this guy's worth a ton of money. And my dad's like saying, like, you know, as I'm coming into pit, like I'm seeing my dad waving, like pointing me into the pit box, right? From like the top of the pit box, he's fucking waving me in there, like, get down there. And I see him like standing right next to this guy. So after the race, I go, Dad, you know how much John is worth? Who you were standing next to? He goes, no. And I'm like, a lot of money, like with a B, you know what I mean? And he goes, I don't care. You know, my kid's racing. I don't give a shit. He's like, keep paying for my kid to race. I don't give a shit. So, yeah, it's funny. My dad's old school too. So
Absolutely. It seems like it's a big deal for you and your family to be able to make it to that point. Obviously, you've been running at Xfinity. I'm sure Cup is on the radar this in some capacity, just to say that you have made a Cup start. Is that a realistic possibility in the coming years?
that's funny you say that because like at the start of this year, it's like trying to identify what my goals are, you know? I think the Cup Series is like really unique and like, yeah, I think that exact phrase, like, okay, I should just like put this on I want to just put this on my resume. You know what I mean? Like, say that I did it. Because like when I was a kid, you know, it was just kind of the Cup Series, right? Like that's all it was. But yeah, I'm wicked like excited to be racing an Xfinity Series. Like I never, you know, then when you get older, you realize like, oh, there's a big difference there. But no, I have been thinking about the opportunities that could present themselves in the Cup Series with the sponsor, and I think, you know, I think Main Street would want to do it, but Main Street loves the Xfinity Series. They love how competitive, you know, like I compare it to like college football, right? Like everyone in the Xfinity Series is trying to make a name, and like we race that much harder, you know.
That's so cool. I mean, that would be a good partner to bring up to the Cup Series. And, you know, at Daytona, it seems like all them guys are having a blast being at Daytona and being a part of the sport, and they seem very happy in NASCAR. So I feel like, and, you know, once that Cup start does come, whether if it's next year or 5 years from now or where the case may be, I believe it's going to come one day. No matter what, you hit the pinnacle and you made it all the way to the very top of the mountain. And I know that's going to mean a lot for anyone. I mean, you think growing up, we're all just young race fans, and you hit that pinnacle, it has to mean a lot no matter what.
For sure.
So with
totally agree.
With that said, I'm going to toss you back to Cameron for some final questions and see what Mr. Cameron has to say.
All right. I have to continue this streak. Every single time we've had a driver on here, I've always asked this same exact question, and I need to continue it. On race day, what goes through your mind, and what does your Friday or Saturday look like leading up to the race?
So that's evolved a little bit. Been working with a sports performance coach. Shout out to Craig Kolak Training. It's evolved. It depends on the track. It depends on if it's like all in one day. I fucking hate when it's practice, qualifying, and the race all in one day. I fucking hate that. But you know, just night before, just trying to get good sleep, trying to like stay calm. I do a lot of box breathing. The things I focus on are like hitting my marks, being consistent. It's like it's all the little shit, right? Like pivot speed, right? Is it second gear all green? Is it second gear 4500 all green? Like what little things can I control? Because in racing, there's so many fucking variables that are outside of our driver's controls, and it's like being able to let go. I have a couple of resets in the car. I like tap my steering wheel. That's a mental reset, you know. Hitting my marks on restarts, right? Like that's huge. So it's like things I try to visualize at least like 10 laps at least before I go to bed, like just in my mind, right? Just go through the racetrack in my mind. It's like that's a big thing for me.
Oh, absolutely. And I see the I'm pretty sure that's a sim rig behind you.
It is,
Um,
yeah.
um, how much sim time do you get, or how much of the sim do you use in the weeks leading up to a race that you're going to be driving? Like, let's just say you said you got Bristol coming up, so um, I'm sure when the official races roll around on iRacing, you're probably going to be hitting all those up, and I'm sure you're probably just going to be doing some solo test sessions.
Yeah. So like, this is something I just talked about in another podcast was our lack of practice time is just such a detriment
It's like 20 minutes a
to
week.
it's atrocious. You know, like it's atrocious.
Meanwhile,
So
the
I hope
cup
they
guys get like two
changes.
hours.
Yeah.
I hope that changes in the near future, and I hope that too, like I hope I'm able to get on a Chevrolet simulator sometime in the near future. But with that being said, like yeah, I try to get on this as much as possible. I used to work full time for like my former sponsor. I don't do that anymore. And now I'm able to just focus on the racing. So like it hasn't like I haven't made giant leaps, but I've made steps towards progress. So like that has helped being able to just to focus on the race and like think about um when I'm attack, just planning out the race in my mind and practicing on the simulator. So at least 4 hours is the minimum I try to get.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. I definitely think that all the lower series should get some more practice time because I mean, like DLB said, 20 minutes before you guys even get the chance to qualify, it's really not enough, especially if you're racing at a track like Daytona or Talladega or even some of the road courses. You're lucky if you get like maybe 3 or 4 laps in, and
And
even at that point,
sorry
it's
to
still not
interrupt,
enough.
but it's like it's not just 20 minutes or even if they said it 30, like you go out, do a qualifying run, come in, make changes. It takes 10, 12 minutes to make them changes. You go back out, you're getting like if you have a good day, what, 4 runs? Does that sound about right, CJ? Like at most
Three,
3.
2 to 3, yeah.
And then we're like 2 laps apiece. They're not much.
Yeah, and so like that's like like I can't go to the track much just financially. So like I try to listen on like MRN or stuff and like Brad Keselowski, like their plan of attack for practice last year was like go out, make quick short runs and make adjustments, right? Like or you have a driver that goes out there and just uses the whole practice time and they just like feel the car out from like start to beginning of the run. So it's like, what do you do? You adjust afterwards, you know? Like during the race. I don't know what the right call is, but like I do hate to like practice right into qualifying, right? Like I can't even get my head straight. I'm like still trying to digest what the car was doing. Like maybe I'm not the fastest like on the uptake on that one. So it's like, oh, what did my car do? And then we throw a new set of tires on there, tape it all up, and the car acts completely different, right? So it's not easy.
Yeah. I really hope someone from NASCAR is actually listening to this so they can kind of be like, hey, maybe we should make some changes for next season.
Yeah.
um,
Everything
we
changed
can
since
only,
COVID. It's like they just never went back.
Well, they changed it this year to we get 25 minutes in Group A,
Yeah.
25 in Group B, and it's like
Yeah. But I mean, you think,
maybe we just do.
say you're a rookie driver coming from, ARCA up to Xfinity. You need them laps. I mean, I don't want to go back to the incident we had at Daytona with Josh Bilicki, but we're having drivers make mistakes because they're just not getting the lap times in before the race. They're just throwing into the deep end when it's time to set green.
So like things like that where we had 50 minutes of practice at Daytona, where it used to be speed weeks, right? We used to have days of practice and then qualifying. Like we weren't in a 1 hour window, right? To like make qualifying if one rainstorm comes and we're screwed. So yeah, a lot of issues there. And then like, so with only having the 50 minutes of practice, right? Like I wanted to come down and do a hot lap coming into pit road, and like I got to do that, right? But I made sure that the crew chief and spotter had knowledge of my plan there. But like that took a lap. That took one lap away from us and making another lap and getting more speed out of the car.
yeah. Yeah. Hopefully they make those changes, but On that note, I'm going to pass it back to DLB to see if he has any final questions.
So, heading to Bristol, obviously being third race of this year for DGM, second one that we're going to be racing in. Bristol was a tough track. Going into it, do you have in mind of, here's the boxes I want to check. I want to qualify here. I want to finish here. I want to protect the car. I want to show up, perform good for the sponsors, run up front all day. What is your check box? What is your goals for this upcoming race?
All of those. Qualify. I know the last time I ran there, I let off a half a car length too early going to 3. So definitely being a little more aggressive going into qualifying. And then the race, anything can happen in the race. So just being as aggressive as I can, and have a good race.
That sounds like
not make any mistakes on pit road. I think that's you make a mistake on pit road there, you're pretty fucked.
Gotcha. How many races do you think we're gonna see you in, or is it just kind of race by race at this point?
I think we definitely have 3 more. Working on a few more. It's dude, it's not easy.
That's sweet though. I mean, I'm sure it's a grind. Tell me about the daily grind, because I talked to Josh Bilicki about this, and Josh is a great driver, but it's hard to stick it out for years and years and years. And the main reason he's been able to do that is because this guy just shoots emails day after day after day after day just to see who will pick up, who will answer, who will respond. Tell me about the daily grind of just hitting up all these sponsors just to continue your career.
I'm on LinkedIn a lot. LinkedIn. I tried getting a software company, a software CRM that gets you marketers' emails. That's been helpful. Just takes down the time a little bit. That hey, shoot me an email. I can at least shoot an email off easier. But it's a lot of research, trying to figure out a company would be a good fit, how to approach them, right? You can send off 100 emails, but if you send off 5 good emails and 5 good companies that would be a good fit, it's a little bit of use of time, but then lag back on discovery and all that stuff. So my last job, I was in sales, so I was just doing research is half the battle, and then reaching out.
Absolutely.
So, and then embracing the fucking no. I do appreciate when they say no better than left me on red.
Yeah.
I hate when people dude, say I had this one guy, I was texting with him. I was texting with him, he wasn't texting with me. Because he just keep living it was his red receipts were on, so I finally said to him, I was hey bro, listen, obviously you can tell how hard I work if I'm bothering you this much. Obviously I'm gonna work this hard as if you're my sponsor. Well, what's the deal with red messages? And then that stopped,
Oh my goodness. Okay, so
I call him out though. I call him out.
You got to. My final question is, you've been with several teams in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. You talk about you feel more of a home at DGM Racing. It seems like you have a very loyal partner this year. Can you tell me why this year is different than all the rest? Because I just sense it at the track. I sense it in the interview. Why is this year different?
Great question. I think it's my ability to focus on racing, not to have to worry about my day job. It was a blessing in disguise, right? I had a great sponsor who was paying for my racing, and whatever they needed, I would do for them. And same with Main Street, but I am now able to focus on just one thing, and that's racing, and that's what I need to perform at. So, all the setbacks enabled me to look at what I was doing wrong and enable me to fix those things now, to approach it with a different attitude. So it was the setback was almost good for me in a way,
Absolutely. We'll see you at Bristol. Where can the people find you on social media?
The gram, cjmclaughlin.racing. I think Twitter or X is cjmclaughlin3. Facebook, if people still use that. And that's about it. I gotta start a YouTube page or something. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Do it.
TikTok.
For sure.
Something.
Yeah, we need a
McLaughlin.
YouTube channel out of this. You can tell everyone the racing stories.
Start a Twitch page.
I think we're creating some good video content that me and Main Street are doing. We're doing more of that. So just trying to blast it out there. You know, like I think not to toot my own horn, but like I have a unique story where I'm broke and I'm like trying to make it. You know, I think it's kind of funny too. Like I always like I had this conversation with Ryan at Daytona.
Mhm.
I was like, bro, like what? Like I thought I would get a car by now. Like Chevrolet or Ford would give me a car. I thought I was like, oh, what a delirious dream that was, you know?
I mean, in talking to Ryan, you know, that guy grinded it out for years. He was telling me, I was talking to him last week. He was telling me about day jobs he was working if within the last 3 years, 4 years, like just normal day jobs, and just chasing this career. Obviously, it means a lot to you to chase it every day, and same for Ryan, and to never give up on that dream. And it's almost like a manifestation of, I'm going to stay locked in. I'm going to be focused on the goal. I don't care what I got to do. If I got to go work this day job for a bit, at the end of the day, my dream's going to work out. I don't care how long it takes to chase it. It's going to work out. What keeps you motivated to do that?
I have no backup plan right now. So I think that's like a major part of it. Like I went through a divorce last year, over racing. And yeah, I can't stop, man. Can't stop. I also like say to myself, like, I haven't come this far to only come this far. You know?
Yeah, and that talks about how much you gotta sacrifice to chase this dream, and clearly you have sacrificed a lot to chase this NASCAR dream. And any driver out there, unless they came from daddy's money, or you know, there's so many of them that just got funded up there. Anyone who had to work it the entire time throughout their 20s, throughout their 30s to have a career in it.
Dude,
you know,
I don't mind calling out Austin Hill for this because it pissed me off.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny too. Like on the Dale Jr. podcast, he was like, "Oh, we went to work real hard on finding sponsors," and it's like he called up like one fucking company.
Yeah.
You know, that his daddy does business with, and it's like, yeah, that's working real hard, man. Tell you what, like, fuck off.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, but that's how it is, though. Is like a lot of these 20-year-old kids, it's, you know, they have funding, or they just have their parents' money that they can just throw at a race team, and they go find their own funding to fit the rest of the schedule. But a lot of, you know, even our guys, Josh, Ryan, you haven't had it that easy. You guys had to hit that struggle, but that's also the reason why you're going to be here in your 30s and 40s versus a lot of them are going to dry up by the time they're 30.
Yeah, and you know, like I think I did a lot of research like from 2016 to 2019, like looking at what drivers were bringing in sponsors, and like, you know, you would notice like kids would go from ARCA to trucks and kind of fizzle out, or ARCA to a couple Xfinity rides and fizzle out. Like if it was too difficult for them, they would just kind of give up. But then you look at like me, Josh, and Ryan, like that's another, like, you know, I fit really well with the DGM team, but also with like my teammates, right? Like we all are busting our butts to get to the track every weekend. I know Ryan and Josh are doing a better job than I am with sponsorship, but they're doing a great job, and that's like we all get along, you know, like because we're all in the same boat, you know.
Yeah, y'all have like the same story of where it's just chasing that dream, and you know, I can't wait to see the day that you're gonna be in a cup car and reach the top of that mountain. It's gonna happen in the next 3 years, and I'm really happy for the partnerships that you're growing right now. That's gonna have you on track at Bristol, and it sounds like you got a lot of good days ahead, and it's all paying off for you here, and you got an exciting future coming up for you.
Dude, I really appreciate that, DLB. I needed those words of affirmation today, man. You know.
I gotcha. Well, thank you so much, CJ, for coming on the Pit Crew podcast for episode number 26.
Love it. Like, come back anytime.
Absolutely. So, Cameron, how'd you feel about episode number 26, buddy?
I think that was the chillest and realest episode we've ever had.
I agree. Without a doubt. Definitely. I appreciate everyone for tuning in tonight. The Pit Crew Podcast, episode number 26. We'll be back in the future, Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Tune in, and we'll catch you for episode number 27.